I'm sharing about how releasing fear of showing my fear or hurt, denial by way of anger or rage, causing harm in fight or flight, unconscious communication or connection, being sexually or physically vulnerable instead of, like, in excess instead of emotionally disclosing. People were hurt when I hid or repressed and compensated for my defensiveness of my sensitivity and innocence. The need to hold a grudge and safety, for control. Atoning means maintaining lovability as opposed to condemning and force, overpressuring with blackmail after compassionless punishing for a mistake. Blaming people for not knowing any more than me what I needed. Stagnancy, outward reflecting stuckness, judgment inside, and distrust of life itself, which is adaptive, evolving, endless possibility. The body holds the emotional trauma and I become needy and low energy. The same principles that keep out the bad are actually keeping in the same bad. As a healer, we are healing and we heal. The need for an echo approval to be taken seriously, understanding, unconscious manipulation of a weaker person, to people please me by acting good and better and happier, denial of needs, true personality, unique history, is not lasting happiness, but transference of tricking by way of teaching, tricking into, suggesting, repression, and instant fix versus reflection. Avoiding feeling, accepting, integrating my old and recent pains so I can be free from the hope that I may find an understanding, patient, and empathetic, kind parent at my disposal. Craving rapt attention and revealed inner world with honesty, clarity, instead of mourning the unavailable and unintelligible contradictions of parents who were never free of their childhood. The desire to be cheerful in order not to threaten others' equilibrium. Alienating myself to the point of obsessive perversion. To scare people into needing my explanation, protection, and comfort. That's a hard one for me. Like, I remember my father scaring me into needing him. Like, if he wouldn't have scared me to begin with, I wouldn't have turned to him like that. Avoiding the emotions behind symptoms like horror, indignation, despair, helpless rage. Of looking for my mirror. I am a unique, small, helpless being left from infancy and others. There's this book by Alice Miller, which at the moment I forget the name. Hold on, let me try something. Alexa, what book did Alice Miller write?
Alice Miller wrote numerous books, including The Drama of the Gifted Child. For your own good. The truth will set you free and banish knowledge. She was a renowned psychologist.
Okay, thank you, Alexa.
For her work on childhood.
So, The Drama of the Gifted Child. So, depression and grandiosity. Basically, I wrote a little bit about that. Two related forms of denial. Healthy self-feeling is the unquestioned certainty that the feelings and needs I experience are a part of myself. Oh, the dogs, I'm staying at someone's house, dog sitting. I need to close the door. It got very cold. They came in. Just a moment. So I'll start that part again. Healthy self-feeling is the unquestioned certainty that the feelings and needs I experience are a part of myself, like automatic, like a pulse when properly functioning. Children need to be noticed, respected, and understood. Needs have to be respected, whether it's first weeks or months. To have a mother at the disposal, also known as a parent, which allows theirself to be made use. The parent allows their self to be made use of as a function of the child's development, where children can make use of the smallest effective nourishment, stimulation in the environment and surroundings, even if the parents are limited and can't give understanding emotional climate. The kid can get it if they aren't prevented or being blocked from other resources. So bonding, like skin and eye contact, feeling of oneness, belonging, safety to trust, reassurance, initial mutual intimacy can never be recreated. So you're only 6 months old once. The less danger of mistreating others or allowing others to be mistreated comes from this automatic natural contact with their own needs and emotions gives the individual strength and self-esteem without the fear of destabilizing or unsecuring others. Can be afraid when threatened, can be angry when wish is not fulfilled, knows it likes, dislikes, and can express without anticipating whether I'll be loved or hated for it. To be loved passionately is not in the way that we need to be loved. For example, we need to be loved reliably and continuously, constantly. It doesn't have to be highs and lows. Developing what the parent needs to save life by securing love prevents us from being ourselves. We literally saving our life by being who our parent wants us to be. When we react to past dangers as if they're present, we split off from our natural developmental needs. And being a parent's possession, we're like controllable, we're an echo at their disposal, never allowed to desert them. We have to be centered on them completely, offering our full attention and admiration. If the child's demands are too great, like their own mother will refuse to be tyrannized because not defenseless, and will bring up a child that doesn't cry or disturb, ensuring consideration, care, and respect. A long suppressed anger at the cold and petty, domineering, demanding, controlling, manipulative, stupid, obsessing, touchy, overwrought, easily offended, false, hard to please mother results in anxious concern, warded off aggression and envy because the mother felt insecure in relation, and pressing children into service like a generational trauma. And also we could look at depression as an emptiness, a futility, fear of impoverishment, loneliness, tragic loss of self in childhood, and totally alienated from the self in adulthood. And there's this grandiosity, which is defense against depression. Depression is defense against deep pain over the loss of self that comes from denial. It could be conscious or unconscious. It's a sense of tragic history. And these are also called narcissistic disturbances. Grandiosity is like this balloon of the self-esteem, not genuinely developed from an inner strength, inner support, and whether it's conformity, outstanding achievements, special abilities, talents, beauty, or thrown out family, the group, and cold-shouldered, admiration is not love. And that has to be integrated. That it's just a substitute gratification. For the respect, for the understanding, for being taken seriously. It's a symbol of love, but it's like walking on stilts. There's this rage carried up, pent up at those who scared us to walk without stilts, and jealous of those who walk on their own legs, even if they're considered like ordinary or smaller. And when we're dependent on impressing, we become envious of the average person. Self-respect seems to be dependent on our qualities, functions, achievements, and that can fail. Only mourning for what was missed at the crucial time can lead to the real healing versus the intoxication of success that never fills the gap. Or attractiveness or whatever. We ward off the depression with increased displays of brilliance, denying that there wasn't constant attention and availability and one's own emotional reactions. We even choose partners who will enact depressive components and guarantee like that they can look after the poor partner or grandiose, feeling strong, indispensable. But this pillar supporting is for personality, founding on denial of the childhood emotional wound of the world. Both is this oversensitivity, split off aggression, restlessness, perfectionism, preponderance of exploitative relationships, enormous fear of loss of love, and therefore a readiness for shame or guilt, and a great readiness to conform, fragile self-esteem, false self, that has led to a loss of potential true self. Depression is really a denial of one's own emotions and reactions. It's impossible to enjoy one's own body when we're jealous of others and feel shame about what they'll think, and having to squash discontent, silence, hunger. Learning that to make our caretaker happy leads to even eating disorders. When we deny the real facts or obscure our life history, it cuts off our ability to love. These sources are off, and we can try to behave as if we're loving, but it's confusing, it's deceptive, produces helpless rage in the other who has to repress it, especially if one is dependent or on the masquerading. And acknowledging our own truth brings honesty and consciousness and respect. Physical symptoms develop to wake us from dangerous sleep it's like we're unconscious, we're like in a sleep, in order to finally take seriously the feelings, perception, and thoughts that we don't need to love adults unconditionally. We're not meant to try to force ourselves to love that which doesn't match the way we feel. And we have to integrate that whenever we find parts unclaimed, the parts we're looking for someone to love unconditionally, we can see that we earned love by being competent, controlled, able to cope, not threatening freedom, useful, unaffected. But that also means we didn't receive unconditional love, and that we were so lonely with no one to tell our suppressed suffering to. Training someone, devoted lover, trusting lover, tender feelings for toy, distraction, learning to love without fear that I'll be betrayed, exploited, violated, condemned for enjoying it, and shedding that child that we believe doesn't deserve respect or can be ignored, played with, mistreated, threatened without any consequences. It's about unlearning the conditioning of pleasure being connected to pain and rage and the tendency toward avoidance of true love. Depression is relieved when we don't suppress. The proximity and denial of repressed memories with unprocessed feelings is able to be a breakthrough that the parts of us we rejected and can strengthen and engage in integrating now that we feel it's safe to be ourselves. So if I wasn't allowed to engage in imaginative play and my inner world was closed off to me until I felt my rage, I couldn't risk feeding my needs because I refused prior to accept them. This is called the cycle of renewed vitality. After we have the catharsis of we release that rage. When we reproach a person who hurts us, it heals us. Reproaching another unjustly leaves baggage. So if we start like taking it out on someone who maybe isn't the right person, but then the person that was the one that did this to us, we don't talk to, it's like we create more imbalance. So there's a pattern of forgetting who I am as I grow into a whole new person that can leave me hopeless in fear and thinking all is pointless, feeling disconnected, yearning, forcing myself to exceed my limits, hurting myself and not speaking up, which is like an inner prison because I was pushed so hard and disciplined. The depression itself stifles spontaneity. Whenever we suppress, it's like the conscious versus repression and impulse. It's what we consider an unwanted emotion. But the child who can't experience pain doesn't know self-deception is happening and is also far more threatened than an adult by the intensity of feelings if there's no supportive or empathetic environment. So the stranger, the prisoner, the thicker the prison walls have to be, they impede, they become so strong, they impede and prevent later emotional growth. Allowing ourselves to feel, even feeling shabby, petty, mean, confused, resentful, demanding, humiliated, lonely, or sad. It's like you could say self-reproaching is for feelings is what actually ends up causing hypersensitivity to feelings. So we actually have to allow those feelings. A therapist shouldn't make the connection for someone else using their feelings to navigate. One must face sacrificing a childhood for love that was based on what could be used or exploited to meet others' needs and choose to live according to the true self and never force the self to earn the love again. That always leaves him or her empty-handed because it's given to the false self. And the less one identifies with that, the less of a payoff the false self's affirmation, love, ideal, grandiosity will provide. In order to step into the present moment, full experience, but rather support. So a therapist has to support someone to feel their own pain. And support groups sometimes rob the higher power with the promise of external group fulfillment and individual maturation, not actually feeling the feelings, but suppressing them in the name of like sobriety. So it's all about the connection with the self. When we refuse to tolerate abuse, we can feel like it could require feeling pain, really, of not being protected by the subjugated, indifferent, defensive parent, or else unconsciously we can recreate the being abused by tolerating mortification or anger, humiliation, and torment, and even self-destroying in the relationship. Depressive and grandiose styles deny childhood reality by living as though availability of the parent could still be salvaged. A grandiose via illusion of achievement, and depression via the fear of losing love. Instead of accepting the truth that the loss and absence of love already happened in the past and no one can ever change it. And the very feelings that we try to avoid are the ones that will set us free. And just a comment about the narcissism is when we fall in love with that false self, the pretty image, not the whole person, which includes a shadow, a back, a history, which makes it impossible to love others either too with their wholeness. Wish you well. Have a great week. Bye.